Ukrainian children, and they are here also to follow our debate on the needs to address the urgent concerns surrounding Ukrainian children forcibly deported to Russia. Warm welcome. Thank you for being with us. So, colleagues, we now start our agenda. Council and Commission statements need to address the urgent concerns surrounding Ukrainian children forcibly deported to Russia. And I would like to give the floor on behalf of the Council to Minister Madame Labib. The floor is yours, please.
Madame la Présidente, honorables parlementaires, chers membres de la Commission, chers commissaires et chère Natalia. Le Conseil européen a insisté il y a un an déjà sur le fait que la Russie doit assurer le retour en toute sécurité des Ukrainiens transférés de force ou déportés en Russie, en particulier les enfants. Je peux vous assurer que le Conseil reste fermement engagé dans la lutte contre l'impunité pour les crimes internationaux commis dans le cadre de la guerre d'agression contre l'Ukraine, y compris bien entendu les crimes commis vis-à-vis des personnes particulièrement vulnérables que sont les enfants. Les ministres de la Justice réunis au sein du Conseil ont évoqué cette question des enfants transférés de force il y a 10 jours lors d'une discussion sur la lutte contre l'impunité à laquelle participait le procureur général ukrainien Andrei Kostin. Les ministres et le procureur général ukrainien ont rappelé que la lutte contre l'impunité est un effort de longue haleine et qu'il faut mener ce combat sans relâche. La tâche est immense vu l'ampleur et le nombre aussi de crimes commis. Les efforts déployés par le Conseil et les États membres prennent plusieurs formes. Alors, je ne vais pas tous les passer en revue, mais je voudrais tout de même insister sur quelques aspects particulièrement importants. Tout d'abord, je veux rappeler que de nombreux États membres ont ouvert des enquêtes pour crimes de guerre au niveau national. Les autorités judiciaires de 7 États membres se sont associées aux autorités ukrainiennes dans une équipe commune d'enquête soutenue par Eurojust. Grâce à une législation adoptée en temps record par les co-législateurs, Eurojust a mis sur pied une banque de données contenant les éléments de preuve portant sur ces crimes internationaux. Et c'est la toute première fois tous les secteurs de criminalité confondus qu'une telle banque de données existe. Eurojust héberge aussi le Centre international pour la poursuite du crime d'agression contre l'Ukraine, qui est également unique en son genre. Les États membres apportent également du soutien à l'Ukraine et à la Cour pénale internationale pour leur permettre de continuer leurs efforts, que ce soit au niveau financier ou leur expertise, par exemple, médico-légale. C'est durant la discussion au Conseil il y a 10 jours que le procureur général ukrainien et les ministres de la Justice des États membres ont appris la délivrance par la Cour pénale internationale de 2 nouveaux mandats d'arrêt, cette fois en lien avec les frappes de missiles par les forces russes. Ces 2 mandats d'arrêt s'ajoutent à ceux émis il y a un an à l'encontre du président Vladimir Poutine et de la commissaire russe aux droits de l'enfant qui porte spécifiquement sur la déportation et les transferts d'enfants. Après une phase où il fallait créer de nouveaux outils et des nouvelles structures, ce que nous avons fait ensemble, une grande partie des efforts est maintenant accomplie par les autorités judiciaires nationales et internationales. Le Conseil continuera bien sûr de soutenir les efforts pour lutter contre l'impunité pour les crimes commis en Ukraine. Je vous remercie pour votre attention.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la Ministre. Now I would like to give the floor on behalf of the Commission to Vice President Madame Šuica. The floor is yours.
Good morning to everybody, dear President, dear friends from Ukraine, dear honourable members, dear Minister. A generation of Ukrainian children has experienced more than a year of fear, loss, tragedy and violence. They had to live life as they know it behind them. Russia's illegal war of aggression against Ukraine is having a devastating effect on all Ukrainians, but especially on children. The European Union is not silent in light of Russia's unlawful deportation or transfer of Ukrainian children. This is a terrible crime, inflicting unimaginable suffering. The perpetrators of these crimes must be held accountable. These children must return to their families and to their communities. To achieve this, the European Union fully supports a number of different initiatives. The European Union participates in the Ukrainian initiative Bring Kids Back to Ukraine, supported by President Zelensky's office. This initiative will unite efforts of the Ukrainian authorities, foreign governments and international organizations and works on returns, on accountability and on prevention. In Kiev, the European Union is part of the group of Friends on Children and Armed Conflict in Ukraine with other foreign missions. The European Union will also continue to support and engage with the UN's Children and Armed Conflict mandate and welcomes Russia being included in the list of shame for the first time this year. We welcome the launch of the International Coalition for the Return of Ukrainian Children on the 3rd of February this year. The European Union will continue to follow the work of the coalition closely and is currently assessing how it can best support the coalition and its activities. The European Union is also fully committed to take all necessary efforts to ensure that those responsible for crime of unlawful deportation or transfer of Ukrainian children are held accountable. 17 member states have so far opened investigations into international crimes committed in Ukraine, and the European Union is supporting these national investigations through strengthening judicial cooperation via Eurojust. 6 member states and Ukraine are members of the joint investigation team to which the ICC and Europol are participants. In this vein, we warmly welcome and support the issuing of arrest warrant by the International Criminal Court. The fact that the court singled out the acts of unlawful forced deportation and transfer of Ukrainian children as the war crimes as a base for the first arrest warrant since the start of Russian invasion illustrates both the urgency and severity rightly attached to the issue. The European Union has so far supported the ICC with over €10 million since the beginning of the invasion. The court is a key actor for consistency and enforcement of the international criminal justice system. The European Union has been and continues to support the Prosecutor General's Office of Ukraine to strengthen its capacities to investigate and prosecute international crimes committed in Ukraine. This also includes support for the Atrocity Crimes Advisory Group together with the US and the UK. We have financed the IT advancement of the Prosecutor General's Office with €4 million. We are furthermore dedicated to support national investigations opened into international crimes committed in Ukraine. In addition, the European Union is committed to improving the coordination of various support efforts to the Prosecutor General's Office through the international platform of the Dialogue Group. Dear members, I look forward to today's exchange. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Commissioner. Now I would like to give the floor on behalf of the group of the European People's Party to colleague Mrs. Juknavičienė. The floor is yours.
Dear colleagues, dear brave Ukrainian girl Valeria, to date, around 20,000 Ukrainian children have been stolen from their homeland and deported to Russia, with only 400 having been returned. Since 2014, estimates suggest the number of these forcibly displaced children could be as high as 700,000. Many of these children are orphans or kids without parental care. Deportation, a war crime under the Rome Statute and the Fourth Geneva Convention, is being used as a weapon against the most vulnerable. The goal of this merciless policy is as clear as it is cruel: to erase the Ukrainian identity of these children and Russify them. I grew up in Soviet-occupied Lithuania, so I know what Russification and Sovietization means. The names of children are changed, their birth certificates are altered, they are bombarded with Russian propaganda and forced to attend Russian military processions. Their forcible deportation is not merely a violation of international law. It is a calculated act of cultural and national genocide, aiming to extinguish the very essence of Ukraine's future. We call on the EU to condemn these actions and to recognize them as a part of a genocidal policy against the Ukrainian people. We also urge the EU to establish a dedicated team and provide sustainable, well-funded support to assist Ukraine in identifying, returning, and rehabilitating these children, and to continue supporting organizations like HoloCDT, which are crucial in these efforts. Thank you.
Thank you very much. On behalf of the group of the Progressive Alliance of Socialists and Democrats in the European Parliament, colleague Mrs. Fredson, please.
Fru talman, kommissionen, rådet och våra ukrainska vänner. Ja, i krig och konflikt så är det alltid barnen som drabbas hårdast. Barn dödas, skadas, drabbas av brist på mat, vatten och säkra platser. Barn tvingas sluta skolan eller separeras från sina föräldrar. Och barn som tvångsförflyttas till Ryssland är helt oacceptabelt i detta Rysslands folkrättsvidriga, brutala
This is a brutal operation on the part of Russia, a war of aggression against Ukraine. Therefore, the regime must be called to account for its actions, and children's rights must be defended. We, in the Socialist and Democrat group, took an initiative, namely for a package to protect children, and the European Union stands behind that package. We're talking about the freedom of children, the freedom of Ukraine, the future of Ukraine, and we're also here talking about our cohesion in Europe. It's also about Sweden's safety and the safety of all our European nations. We are doing this for our children.
Thank you very much. On behalf of the Renew Europe group, colleague Mrs. Woutmans, please.
Goedemorgen, mevrouw de voorzitter, mevrouw de minister, commissaris, maar vooral goedemorgen aan de moedige bezoekers hier van Oekraïne. En ik ben heel erg blij dat men u tenminste heeft kunnen terugbrengen. Dat doet mij eigenlijk vandaag het meeste plezier. Collega's, kinderen zijn altijd het meest kwetsbaar in een oorlog. En dat Rusland nu meer dan 20.000 onschuldige kinderen uit Oekraïne heeft gedeporteerd is walgelijk en misdadig. En waarschijnlijk zijn het er nog veel meer. Ik hoorde mevrouw zeggen 715.000. Eigenlijk hallucinant. En als moeder van 2 kinderen vraag ik mij af, wat zou ik nu doen als dat mijn kinderen zijn? Als het mijn zoon is? Als het mijn dochter is? En als je dan denkt dat Rusland die kinderen in heropvoedingskampen dwingt om ze te russificeren, hun van hun identiteit te beroven. Laten we geen doekjes omwinden, collega's. Dit zijn oorlogsmisdaden en die moeten bestraft worden. Als co-voorzitter van de intergroep voor kinderrechten roep ik hier eigenlijk op tot 2 dingen. 1. Maak eens werk van zo snel mogelijk die kinderen terug te brengen waar ze thuis horen, bij hun ouders in Oekraïne. En 2. Alles op alles zetten om die oorlogsmisdaden keihard te bestraffen. Dank u wel.
Thank you. On behalf of the group of the Greens European Free Alliance, colleague Mrs. von Kramon-Taubader, please.
Frau Präsidentin, Frau Kommissarin, Vertreter des Rates, Valeria, Natalia, Andrei und Olga. Ilja war erst 9 Jahre alt, als eine russische Granate seine Mutter vor seinen Augen tötete. Ilja selbst wurde schwer am Bein verwundet. Russische Soldaten brachten ihn in ein Krankenhaus, operierten ihn ohne Anästhesie. Seine Ärzte zwangen ihn, Russland und nicht die Ukraine zu loben. Sascha, 11, flehte die russischen Soldaten an, ihn nicht von seiner Mutter zu trennen, vergeblich. pleaded with the Russian soldiers not to separate him from his parents. He was taken to a filtration camp to take away his identity. Others were hid in bunkers before Russian soldiers forced him to live in a Russian household. Ilya, Sasha and Kirill are fortunate because we know what happened to them and they were able to be saved. They are just a few of the over 20,000 Ukrainian children who have been kidnapped by Russia and taken to education camps or Russian households, often very far away in Siberia. Ms. Lvova-Belova has said that 700,000 Ukrainian children have been saved. Fortunately, this lady is now on the ICC's list, as is her boss. Russia is killing parents, kidnapping children, and then brainwashing them. The idea is to destroy Ukrainian identity and its future, and that is the definition of genocide, as in the dictionary. We need to stand on Ukraine's side. We need to stand on the side of these children who need our help and need our help to remain Ukrainian.
On behalf of the European Conservatives and Reformist Group, colleague Mrs. Wiśniewska, please.
Pani Przewodnicząca, Szanowni Państwo, drodzy przedstawiciele ukraińskiego narodu, pochylamy się dziś nad tragedią tysięcy ukraińskich dzieci.
Today we are speaking about the tragedy that is affecting thousands of Ukrainian children, children who were taken away from their families by violent means and sent to Russia. This act has been a systematic act and it's been happening on a large scale. Russia is doing whatever it can to cut off the ties between these children and their homeland. They're told lies about the situation in Ukraine. Adoptions are organised, unlawful adoptions, their birth certificates are forged, and their Ukrainian identity is simply being erased. So this deportation of Ukrainian children is a weapon of war for Russia. It is genocide. It is one of the most awful crimes committed by the Putin regime. We must respond. The ICC has issued arrest warrants against Vladimir Putin and the Russian Children's Rights Commissioner, in particular for the role that she played in connection with these deportations. But the whole Putin regime should be held to account for these actions and for these crimes. That is why we should be imposing an embargo against Russian food in order to make sure that this kind of income cannot be used by the country in order to fund these activities. We must act in solidarity to put an end to this nightmare, to defend the children of Ukraine. The international community must call out this crime. And I very much hope that we will be able to take all necessary sanctions against Russia. We need specific actions today.
Thank you very much. On behalf of the Identity and Democracy Group, Mr. Madison, please.
Madam President, dear colleagues, and dear our Ukrainian friends in the chamber who are visiting us here. First of all, we are very, very sorry for all Ukrainian children and families who have lost their kids for the Russians and who are kidnapped or forcibly deported to Russia. I would like to mention, because I have a few minutes here left, to mention some kind of statements of the Russian propaganda, what we have heard for the last 2 years. And I'm afraid that there are very many people in Europe and very few people in this chamber who also are believing this kind of propaganda. You have heard probably in the TV channels or in the social media that the Russians are actually protecting those kids because they are taking them away from the war zone and keeping them alive and safe on the Russian side. And that's why they're like the real heroes and saviors, and we should be very thankful for the Russians that they are taking those kids from the Ukrainian side to the Russian side. But the problem with the Russian propaganda is that there are normally 5% something truth, and 95% of this is absolutely false, as a fake news. And it's also one of the fake news. So it means that for the Russian propaganda is that you are attacking the neighborhood country, you are killing them, you're trying to occupy them, or you try to force them to do whatever you want they have to do. And then you say that, okay, but I will take those kids, thousands of kids on the Russian side, because we are the saviors. So we are the good guys actually here. And there are people who are really believing this kind of things. The second thing about the mentality of Russia, and it's nothing new that they are deporting the people. So I think like if somebody's surprised, like I mean in this house, because we should have like one of the highest knowledge of the information above the Europeans. There's nothing new of the Russians that they are deporting the people on the Russian side. That's the old tactic. I would like to remind you, in about 10 days, there is an anniversary of the mass deportation from the Baltic countries. It will be 75 years when almost 100,000 people were forcibly deported to Siberia, to Russia, and very many of them died there. And the Russian propaganda they're still saying today that actually it didn't happen. And if it happened, actually they were the bad people. They were the capitalists who are too rich and they're taking money away from the poor people. But the fact is that 80% of them were kids and women. So I really don't believe that the kids and women are really the capitalists who are like the labor people are forcing to the job. So it's an old tactic for the lying and using the propaganda. And the problem, of course, here is now that we are doing too less and too late. I was listening very carefully also to Madame from the Council. And it's very beautiful and nice that we are opening all investigations. Yes, we are putting the legal procedures forward. It's great. Yesterday, I hope that you have watched this already. Yesterday I was watching again the best documentary movie this year, 20 Days in Mariupol. I don't know how many of you have seen this. If you haven't seen this, you have to watch this. You have to watch this. And the problem is that all the world is seeing, they're killing the small kids. They're destroying the city. We're watching on the news, and then we're saying that, yes, but we have to open an investigation, by the way. We have to take legal steps. The problem is that we are taking too little steps to give the military aid to win the war, to really push back those Russians who are the real guilty and who are doing this kind of war crimes. That's the only solution to end this war and help kids. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, Mr. De Graaf. Please.
Voorzitter, al deze rapporten over de deportatie van Oekraïense kinderen naar Rusland zijn pure propaganda. Rusland heeft miljoenen Oekraïense vluchtelingen opgevangen. Waaronder gelukkig ook honderdduizenden kinderen die door het Oekraïense leger werden en worden gebordeerd. Het parlement moet zich tegen deze Oekraïense oorlogsmisdaden uitspreken. Het internationaal strafhof moet Zelensky hiervoor vervolgen. Oekraïne is bovendien zelf de grootste leverancier van kinderen voor pedonetwerken, mensensmokkel en orgaanhandel. Het heeft hiervoor kinderkennels met draagmoeders.
Child smuggling for organ.
In Rusland krijgen kinderen een traditionele opvoeding.
Children are getting a traditional education.
In het Westen krijgen ze transgender indoctrinatie, hormoonblokkers en genitale verminking. De hypocrisie is hemeltergend. Het Westen moet ophouden met deze oorlogshitscherij.
Next speaker. Can I invite Madame Šojdrová, please?
Hello, dear President, dear colleagues. This discussion is because we want to stop the spread this misinformation. So this is the reason for this discussion, to stop to spread this disinformation, the propaganda, Putin propaganda, as previous colleagues said. Dámy a pánové, já neumím odpovědět na to, proč je zde Putin, proč je zde zase někdo, kdo unáší děti, stejně jako kdysi Hitler. Valerie v 15 letech se ocitla u babičky na okupovaném území. Dostala se na území Ruska a myslela si, že bude studovat na střední škole, ale brzy zjistila, že z ní Rusko chce udělat Rusku. Měla zapomenout na Ukrajinu, měla zapomenout na svoji maminku, svůj ukrajinský jazyk. Pokusila se vrátit, ale povedlo se jí to až na potřetí a dosud na to nevzpomíná ráda. Ale dnes je šťastná, je tady s námi, je šťastná, protože se jí to podařilo. Kolik tisícům dětí se to nepodařilo? Zejména mladší děti nejsou schopné se spojit se svými rodiči či opatrovníky a vyhledat pomoc. Putin je rychlejší.
Putin is faster. He issues Russian citizenship to these children. He changes their identity so that it is then impossible to seek them out and return them. Time is against us, which is why it is so important to hold this debate with the Council and the Commission today. Ukraine needs our weapons facing outnumbering by Russia. This is a key task for today, but we must not forget about the Ukrainian children. This is our future. The European Parliament has been called for help to deport children already back in September 2022. Back then we also called on the International Red Cross Committee to use their remit. Russia for 2 years has been preventing the International Red Cross Committee from fulfilling their mission. The international public needs to know this. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your collaboration, for the fact that the voice of the European Parliament is being heard. We need to join our forces with the Commission, with the Council and the Ukrainian government. Slava Ukraini. The truth and love will prevail.
Next speaker, Mrs. Balmini, please.
Thank you, President, but I have to say what has happened some seconds ago with MEP Marcel de Graaf is a very, very serious issue. We cannot tolerate Russian propaganda in this House. We cannot tolerate pro-Putin fake propaganda in the House of Democracy. We cannot tolerate the violation of the truth. We are fighting, and all the Parliament is united to defend democracy against tyranny, against authoritarian regimes. So please don't come in this House to tell lies in front of these girls, please. So, and we have to condemn this. So, care ragazze, I'm sorry for what has happened. I shift to Italian. La ferocia di un tiranno si misura col comportamento col comportamento verso le persone più fragili, i bambini prima di tutto, rubati ai genitori dall'Ucraina, strappati con la forza nei convitti, deportati in campi di rieducazione, costretti a diventare cittadini russi. Siamo arrivati alla cancellazione dell'identità ucraina, all'annientamento della cultura, delle origini, della propria storia, delle proprie radici. E questa è la forma più odiosa di totalitarismo. 20.000 deportati da Mosca in Russia e in Bielorussia. È imperativo che condanniamo chi commette questi crimini di guerra. Ripetiamolo, è Vladimir Putin il responsabile. Ripetiamolo, è Vladimir Putin. Deve andare di fronte alla Corte Penale Internazionale. L'indottrinamento, il lavaggio del cervello, la propaganda finta sono le armi delle dittature e delle mire imperialiste di Putin. L'Europa alzi la propria voce, ma la dittatura non vincerà contro la democrazia. L'autoritarismo brutale non vincerà contro la libertà e noi siamo qua con voi. Slava Ukraina.
Slava Ukraina.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, colleague Mrs. Renzema, please.
Wat zojuist in dit huis gebeurd is, het Europees Parlement is een schande. Europarlementariër Marcel de Graaf heeft propaganda
Marcel de Graaf has disseminated propaganda and has shamed us. I really wonder who is paying Mr. de Graaf to say these things.
Now I'll continue my speech in English. Because an innocent looks on, hope drowns her pleading eyes. The endless pain of wars, please end this war, she cries. And when I think about all the children forcibly deportated as a mother, my heart cries. I saw those who paid the price with evil all around them. I come here to call for more sanctions, and we must understand the extent of a state-backed network from both Russia and Belarus, and we must find and punish those criminals. There are at least a dozen state officials who have been identified but not sanctioned yet. And what about the foster families in Russia who are receiving the displaced minors? Sanctions as well. What about the children whose pleading eyes cry, please bring me home? Are we doing enough? We cannot go back to sleep. It will haunt us. We must be awakened. Oh, children, turn back. You're only young once.
Thank you very much. Next colleague, Mr. Rope, please.
Ačiū pirmininkė, gerbiama ministrė, minister, commissioner, colleagues, ukrainiečiai. Europa neturi teisės nuvilti Ukrainos vaikų. Ilgus metus pirkdami Rusijos gaunamus resursus, mes stiprinome Putino įtaką. Žiūrėjome pro pirštus į jo daromus nusikaltimus. Jei reaguodavome, atsakas buvo trumpalaikis ir mažai paveikus. Tai leido Putinui galvoti, kad jis gali žengti toliau.
Putin thought that he can march on without being able to agree and commitments to Ukraine. We disappoint the Ukrainians who die because of Russian rockets. We disappoint the parents whose children we were unable to protect. Kremlin now wants to take the children. The question is whether we will close our eyes again and we will drown in this debate. Russia understands only the language of force. We shall do everything that Russia, so that Russia loses this war, and only in that case the children will be able to come back home. Let us not disappoint them.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, paní kolegyně Vrecionová, prosím.
Dobrý den, paní předsedající, děkuji za slovo. Už snad každému musí být jasné, že Putin nezaútočil na Ukrajinu kvůli nějakému domnělému ohrožení rozšiřování NATO nebo kvůli údajné ochraně ruskojazyčných menšin. Putin se vzhlédl v historii a tradici ruského kolonialismu a imperialismu. A snad nejodpornější tváří tohoto ruského vidění světa jsou zločiny, kterých se dopouští na dětech a mladistvích. Násilné únosy ukrajinských dětí do Ruska a forced deportations of Ukrainian children to Russia and the Russification are simply an implementation of a plan to destroy the Ukrainian people, language, culture, identity, future. Snad nejhorším na tom celém je spolupráce ruského Červeného kříže na těchto zločinech. Jednoho dne se za to bude muset Putin i jeho věrchuška zodpovídat. A na tom musíme také pracovat. Děkuji.
And his collaborators will be put before justice, and we need to contribute to this.
Colleague, Mrs. Bochkor, please.
Thank you very much, Madam President. The population of Ukraine has been suffering for more than 2 years now from this awful war, and the most innocent victims are children. Children are suffering psychologically and physically, and in addition to that, many of them have been forcibly deported to Russia. Excuses were used to transfer these children, but Russia didn't actually help them return to their country. And this is a violation of international law, it's a violation of international agreements, it's a violation also of UN rules. Under no circumstances can we allow this. We can never allow children to suffer. We have to guarantee the protection and the safety of children in Ukraine. We must do whatever it takes to stop these deportations and to make sure that these children who have been deported can be returned to their families. Like all children around the world, they too are entitled to stability, to safety, to education, to healthcare. And the only way of achieving this is by bringing about peace as soon as possible. Peace is what these children need. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, colleague López Aguilar, por favor.
Gracias, señora presidenta, Consejo, comisaria. Cuando se han cumplido 2 años de la criminal guerra de Putin contra Ucrania, este Parlamento Europeo ha debatido y constatado crímenes de guerra imprescriptibles, con decenas de víctimas civiles inocentes y entre ellas, por supuesto, miles de niñas y niños. Pero aquí estamos hablando de otro crimen de guerra calificado como tal por la Corte Penal Internacional, que ha emitido orden de búsqueda y captura, no solo contra Putin, sino contra la comisaria rusa de los derechos del niño, de acuerdo con el informe del Comité de Derechos del Niño de Naciones Unidas de enero y con las resoluciones de este Parlamento Europeo que condenan el traslado forzoso de niñas y niños a Rusia, más de 20.000. Exige su regreso, su retorno inmediato a donde pertenecen. Y por supuesto califica como crimen de guerra lo que lo es un crimen de genocidio, de acuerdo con el derecho internacional. Además de un crimen de guerra, el privar de identidad y sustraer de la cultura a la que pertenecen a 20.000 niñas y niños inocentes. Y este Parlamento emite un mensaje muy claro. Puede que no sea mañana ni pasado mañana, pero los crímenes de guerra no prescriben. Y este Parlamento no va a parar hasta que los responsables de crímenes de guerra sean traídos ante la justicia de la Corte Penal Internacional. Gracias, Presidente.
Muchas gracias. Thank you very much. Next speaker, colleague, Mr. Ostravicius, please.
Madam Chair, Minister, Commissioner, just minutes ago we have been reminded that Russian infiltration into this House is real and clear. We have to withstand all those pressures and to fight propaganda and disinformation of Russian-like style as much as we can. Otherwise, we will fail. We will fail miserably. Colleagues, why the Russian occupiers separate and deport Ukrainian people? What are the reasons? First of all, it's a part of a systematic destruction of the Ukrainian nation. It's a Putin's plan, a Ukraine without Ukrainians. Secondly, the Russian occupiers are trying to compensate for their human losses in Ukraine, and they suffer greatly because of their aggression they started against Ukraine. This week, it was reported that there is a special program in Russia to Russify and indoctrinate deported Ukrainian children at schools who are prevented from returning to their homeland. The West must continue to raise the issue of deported Ukrainian children in all international forums. Thank you.
Will you accept a blue card? Yes, so colleague Mrs. Kumpula-Natri, please.
Thank you, Mrs. Austrevich. Do you think we can do more? I'm now chairing in the INTA committee the Russian monitoring group on the sanctions, and I know how difficult it has been between the member states to agree. But also there is good news that there is a long list, 700 pages, of individuals, and also individuals who are in charge of doing this, initiated Russification, are taking care of the PR campaign in Russia, which somebody even reads here. They are doing the plans, how they get the passports, and I also hear bad news from occupied regions that they need passports, Russian passport to go to schools, or they pay people to send them to Siberia. What can we do more than say to our own national governments that do more? Do you have ideas?
For your question, we not only can, we must do much more. And we have to oppose Putin's regime by all means. For your information, just yesterday, a close associate of Navalny, Leonid Volkov, was attacked in Vilnius, Lithuania. I mean, they have long hands. They try to impose atmosphere of fear, uncertainty, to shaken us, to make us not moving, not being united. This Sunday will be a sham elections in Russia. Let's call these elections illegitimate. Let's not recognize those results. And we will start from very beginning, opposing the regime from very painful place we have. So let's be united and let's not be afraid of making clear and sound decisions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Now I have two speakers on my HDI list, so I would like to give the floor first to Mrs. Glavak. Please, the floor is yours.
Hvala vam lijepa, kolegice I kolege. Brojna su djetinjstva uništena.
Djeca se koriste kao sredstva pritiska ili ratni trofeji. A što se događa ovdje? Pred našim očima u Europskom parlamentu ruski agitatori šire neistine i propagandu. Mi moramo pokazati da smo ujedinjeni, da smo na pravoj strani povijesti i da smo na strani nevinih. Na strani nevinih onih 20.000 djece koje su deportirana, a samo ih je 388 vraćeno. Tako masivno preseljenje ukrajinske djece, kršenje normi međunarodnog humanitarnog prava, a čuli smo, Rusija ga provodi isključivo u svrhu njihove daljnje rusifikacije, brisanja nacionalnog identiteta i transformacije njihove ukrajinske svijesti u rusku svijest. Oni žele ruski svet. Nemojte to nikada zaboraviti, a u našem okruženju događa se nešto slično. Kolegice i kolege, djecu koriste kao štit. Oni su najobičnije kukavice. A što je nama činiti? Dobar je ovo korak. Međutim, moramo biti snažni i moramo biti jači. Moramo odmah zatražiti da se svi slučajevi prisilnih nestanaka istraže, a odgovorni odgovaraju za ono što su učinili, a to su ratni zločini. Hvala lijepa.
Thank you very much. Now, next speaker, colleague Mrs. Kumpula-Natri, please.
Thank you, Chair. Also, I want to be very concrete. What can we do more? And I think that when we talk about the children here, there is need for the battlefield help from our side. There is need for Ukrainian society to run. There is no nation to win the war if you don't have schools and electricity and systems in place. So we have done our best to also support this 50 billion. But for the children, once you get the children back or broken families back, what can we do to help them? So one idea is these rehabilitation centres that we can create to give them a safer place, if you can find a safer place today in Ukraine. And I think we also can help NGOs working very close to those front line and so in the society. So I think we don't only need to give more, but give our hearts for the issue and look at these eyes of the children. There has been already 1.5 years ago the UN declaration on these deported children and issue. And we just hear the numbers going bigger. So if we all put efforts together and also in the international podiums take up this, every time you, Madam Minister or Commissioner, you speak, bring the children on the topic very high.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. And now I would like to give the floor again to Commission Vice President Schulze, please.
Thank you, Chair, honourable members. There is no need to repeat what has been said here this morning, but I have to say that I would subscribe all the statements this morning, but the one which was really horrible by the pro-Russian guy who tried to disseminate disinformation, fake news and propaganda. To hear this, it was disgusting. The Commission is committed to continue supporting the work of International Centre for the Prosecution of the Crime of Aggression against Ukraine via Eurojust. The Commission aims to secure long-term funding for this institution and welcomes that the US will contribute with over $1 million to this institution. Eurojust's core international crimes evidence database is fully operational to support activities of International Centre for the Prosecution of the Crime of Aggression against Ukraine. The Commission, together with EEAS, is committed to taking forward the discussions on the establishment of a special tribunal for the crime against Ukraine. This discussion has shown the magnitude of the commitments of all of us, and that all of us share the same commitments, and we have to address this issue in a much heavier manner, if I may say so. Time is ticking, and we all need to do our utmost to ensure that these children return to their families and communities. To return the missing Ukrainian children is of vital importance to us in our work, both in terms of political priority and through various initiatives that we will continue to support. We must help millions of Ukrainian children overcome the terrible trauma that has been inflicted on them, to enable them to regain a sense of normality and to regain their childhood in the end. Every child matters, and every Ukrainian child represents Ukrainian future. This is a sentence which I will repeat. Ukraine cannot be rebuilt without its children. In this vein, we must ensure that Ukrainian reconstruction and reconstruction efforts and national reform processes mainstream children's rights and needs throughout. This is something which I'm also in charge of in my demography portfolio. Investing in children is an investment in Ukrainians' future, in Europe's future, and in a safer world. So it is investment in humanity. To conclude, once again, Russia must be held accountable for these horrible acts. The European Union is taking action. Sanctions have been imposed on 39 individuals for the deportations and for this forced transport of Ukrainian children. We keep drawing attention to these horrible acts, also in the international fora, which is also important. And as I already said in my introductory statement, we cooperate under Bring Kids Back to UA. So together we can do more, and we are trying to do our best. Thank you very much.
Very much. Thank you very much. Now I would like to give the floor on behalf of the Council for the final remark to Madam Minister Labi, please.
Dear Member of the Parliament, thank you very much for your contribution to this very important debate. Thank you for your commitment to truth and democracy. These deportations and forced transfers of children remind us of the darkest moments of the last century. Children are certainly the most vulnerable victims in situations of war and conflict. Since the start of Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine, over 19,500 Ukrainian children have been forcibly deported and displaced from Ukraine to Russia, with only 388 children able to return home. It is to say that, yes, we have to do more. The fight against impunity for the deportation of children, as well as for other war crimes and crimes against humanity committed in Ukraine, is a priority for the Council, and I'm sure for you as well. The Belgian presidency is firmly committed to continuing the efforts in the Council in partnership with the Commission to continue to provide all necessary support to Ukraine and the ICC to ensure that justice is done. And as Commissioner Suika has just mentioned, in addition to the 4 arrest warrants issued, including one against Putin, sanctions have been taken against 39 people linked to these kidnapping and deportations, and we will continue to investigate and to try our best to take back home many children as we can. Thank you very much for your attention.
And we thank you, Madam Minister. Thank you very much. So with this, I will close the debate. We will move to the next item on the agenda, a Commission statement, creation of a European initiative for an annual designation of European capitals for children. I would like to inform members that there will be only one round of political group speakers. Therefore, no KHDI procedure and no blue card will be accepted. And I would like to give the floor again to Commissioner Vice President Šuica, please.
Thank you, Chair. Honourable members, I want to thank you for presenting this initiative. Working on democracy and demography, we have the word demos, meaning people. Our work in the European Commission also signifies taking into account the views of all generations in our democracy. When it comes to children, I want to make the point that they are our agents of change. Throughout my mandate, children have made it clear to me that they are engaged citizens and eager to participate in their democracy. Equally, making children's rights a reality in all dimensions must take place at all levels of governance. This includes the local level, the cities, the regions. This is where we can see how we can make a difference in children's daily lives. The European Union continues to put children's rights at the heart of its efforts. Just 3 years after its adoption, the Commission has delivered on the commitments to turn the strategy on the rights of the child into action. It is about empowering local and regional actors to cover all dimensions of children's rights, everything from health and social inclusion to services and protection against violence. I would like to single out one key issue that we have collectively tried to address together throughout this mandate, and it is child poverty. In the European Union, 1 in 5 children is affected by poverty and socio-economic exclusion. Many of these children live in cities. It's not only in rural areas. When it comes to the implementation of the European Child Guarantee, our key instrument to tackle child poverty, cities play a crucial role in delivery of services such as early childhood education and care, education including school-based activities and healthy lunches, and also housing, which is a key problem in Europe nowadays. So it is essential to continue investing in children. It is essential to fully implement the European Child Guarantee also in the next mandate. Child poverty in the European Union must be eradicated once and for all. Cities are key actors in democracy. The participation of children in political and democratic life is a right. It is also a necessity to make our democracies more resilient from within. It's not only from outside. So children want and they have the rights to be included in developing solutions to their problems. They want to be involved in decisions at home, at school, in their cities, regions, countries, but also at the European level. That is why we have launched the European Union Children's Participation Platform, together with children, civil society organizations and the European Parliament. I also want to thank Intergroup for Children because we really cooperate very good. This is very good collaboration. We therefore learned about your initiative to establish European Capital for Children with Interest. In this vein, we also need to recall that any initiative involving children needs to be comprehensive. As you are probably aware, similar ideas have been developed at the European Union level, for example, the very successful European Capital of Culture, European Capital of Democracy. The European Capitals of Inclusion and Diversity Award also recognizes the role that cities and local authorities play in fostering diversity and inclusion. The objectives that you set out with this initiative are at the heart of some existing funding schemes. The European Commission Citizens' Equality, Rights and Values Programme fosters children's engagement and participation. It also supports citizens' engagement and participation in the policy-making process. Civil society and international organizations have developed initiatives that aim at supporting cities in becoming more attuned to children's needs and empowering children in voicing their ideas. For example, a child-friendly city initiative has been led by UNICEF with the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child since 1996. All these initiatives require a thorough and complex process of preparation and management. This would also require exploring all existing mechanisms which could already support such an initiative of European Capital of Children. I will end now here, listen to your remarks, and then in the end I will express our position. Thank you.
We thank you, Madam Commissioner, and now I would like to give the floor on behalf of the EPP Group, Mrs. Verheyen, please.
Vielen Dank. Zunächst einmal möchte ich mich bei den vielen Unterstützerinnen und Unterstützern für diese Initiative bedanken. Zum Beispiel bei der Präsidentin Roberta Metsola, die vom ersten Moment an sehr positiv war, bei den beiden Vizepräsidentinnen Gabriele Bischof und Eva Kovac, die sehr unterstützend an dieser Initiative beteiligt waren, sowie bei den Initiatoren dieser Initiative. Und ich glaube, ohne die Initiative von Menschen vor Ort, von Menschen auf der lokalen Ebene, sind viele Aktionen in dieser Form nicht möglich. Kinder als die jüngsten Mitglieder unserer Gesellschaft sind nicht nur unsere Zukunft, sondern auch unsere Gegenwart. Ihre Gedanken, Ideen und Bedürfnisse sind von unschätzbarem Wert. Ihr Wohlergehen, ihre Bildung und Teilhabe sind entscheidend für die Entwicklung einer gerechten und nachhaltigen Gesellschaft. Kinder dürfen nicht bloß passive Empfänger von Entscheidungen sein, vielmehr ist es unabdingbar, ihre Stimme zu hören und ihre Ansichten ernst zu nehmen. Als Mitglieder des Europäischen Parlaments haben wir uns erfolgreich dafür eingesetzt, die Rechte von Kindern zu stärken, sei es durch Gesetzgebung, Bildungsprogramme und Schutzmaßnahmen. Nun fordern wir die Kommission dazu auf, Möglichkeiten zu evaluieren, um eine europäische Kinderhauptstadt zu etablieren, denn es ist auch wichtig, dass wir die lokalen Gebietskörperschaften, dass wir die Gemeinden und die Städte, die sich gerade für Kinderrechte, für Partizipation von Kindern engagieren, sichtbar machen, Best-Practice-Modelle deutlich machen. Eine solche Kinderhauptstadt würde den Kindern neben der EU Children's Participation Platform eine physische Plattform bieten, um ihre Anliegen zu äußern und Ideen zu teilen. Darüber hinaus hätten sie die Möglichkeit, die EU-Spiele kennenzulernen und Demokratie hautnah zu erleben. Dies würde nicht nur ihr Selbstvertrauen stärken, sondern auch ihr Verständnis für Demokratie und die EU fördern. Durch die Begegnungsmöglichkeiten von Kindern aus verschiedenen Ländern und Hintergründen könnten in jungen Jahren das interkulturelle Verständnis gefördert werden, was Grundlage für ein friedliches und harmonisches Zusammenleben in der EU ist. Die Europäische Kinderhauptstadt ist eine logische Ergänzung zu erfolgreichen Initiativen der Europäischen Jugendhauptstadt. Beide Initiativen könnten durch eine ausreichende europäische Förderung ihr volles Potenzial entfalten. Lassen Sie uns die Initiative der Europäischen Kinderhauptstadt angehen, damit ein bedeutender Schritt für die Stärkung unserer Kinder, der Zukunft unserer Demokratie und der Völkerverständigung in Europa setzen. Vielen Dank.
Thank you very much. On behalf of the Progressive Alliance of Socialists and Democrats in the European Parliament, colleague Mrs. Bischoff, please.
Danke, Frau Vorsitzende, Frau Vizepräsidentin Šuica. Es ist mir eine große Ehre, dass wir heute diese Resolution des Europäischen Parlaments auf den Weg zu bringen. Eine Resolution, die fordert, dass wir tatsächlich eine europäische Kinderhauptstadt starten und dass wir den Mut haben, die Kinder, ihr Wohlbefinden, ihre Rechte, ihre Chancen und Teilhabe in den Mittelpunkt zu stellen, nicht als Anhängsel, nicht sozusagen nebenbei. Im Oktober haben wir einen offenen Brief gestartet.
We started an open letter, as you know. 49 members from different political groups supported this open letter, as you may be aware, and I wanted to take this opportunity to thank Vice President Eva Kopac for the excellent cooperation that's been taking place on this matter. This is a resolution that began in Hamburg, a small initiative that started with this project and it has developed ever since. If we want Europe to have a future, then we really have to give children a voice. That is something that's already been stated, and here today in this debate, I know that the initiator of the motion is listening carefully and following development of this dossier. We need to have the initiative, we need to have resources as well, because we want to remember that young Europeans are our future. There are many initiatives, in fact, previous speakers referred to this already, the child guarantee, for instance, or the initiative for more children's rights, etc. And particularly, of course, during the pandemic, we saw how important this was. We want to make sure that children are supported when childcare centres were closed down because of the pandemic, etc. So really, we need to place our focus on children, on youth. We want them to participate in the future of Europe. We want to bring them together. We want our cities, our municipalities also to be active stakeholders in this. Make sure that children can decide, what they want, what they can do We can do a lot of things to improve the lives of children, and that's why, Madam Commissioner, I would like to ask you to please make sure that this European Capital for Children is created as soon as possible, because it's an important message to send out, a signal saying, children, you are the future, and we trust you to build it well.
Thank you very much. Now, on behalf of the Renew Europe Group, colleague Madame Farang, s'il vous plaît.
Madame la Présidente, Madame la Commissaire, chers collègues, la place de l'enfant doit être centrale dans notre société. Nous en avons bien conscience ici au Parlement européen. Nous avons créé la garantie européenne pour l'enfance en 2021 pour financer des projets pour l'accès des enfants à tous les services essentiels, la santé, l'éducation et une bonne alimentation. Mais il reste tellement à faire pour les enfants qui sont les premières victimes de la pauvreté et des violences familiales. Nous devons agir dans la lutte contre les abus sexuels, contre l'inceste, pour la protection des enfants en ligne, pour l'éducation au numérique. Oui, une capitale serait une bonne initiative, mais nous devons avant tout progresser sur le plan réglementaire et social. Je soutiens cette idée, mais je plaide pour que les politiques européennes en faveur des enfants aient une vraie place, au-delà des nouvelles initiatives qui peinent à exister. Nous avons en effet déjà les capitales européennes pour la jeunesse, mais sans financement européen, elles ne peuvent pas se développer. Donnons donc plutôt de vrais moyens financiers et logistiques à ces capitales de la jeunesse et ensuite créons les capitales européennes de l'enfant. Merci.
Thank you very much. On behalf of the Greens European Free Alliance, colleague señora Ribay-Giner, por favor.
Gracias, Presidenta.
Los
niños y las niñas serán los que en el futuro se verán directamente afectados por las decisiones que nosotros, los adultos, tomemos hoy. Así que debemos garantizar que sus voces, sus necesidades y sus prioridades no solo sean tenidas en cuenta, sino que también puedan participar plenamente en aquellos procesos que marcarán sus vidas. Y esto, además, debe hacerse en coordinación y cooperación con las autoridades locales, los Estados miembros y organizaciones de la sociedad civil
civil society organizations directed by children or working with children should be involved in this process. Cities should be the first places to be protective and safe for children. So we welcome initiatives such as the European Capitals for Children, but we need to guarantee that for these initiatives to develop their full potential, they need to be coordinated with existing initiatives such as the European Youth Capitals, and they need to be co-directed by children themselves through their clubs and associations. Finally, as Saint-Exupéry said, all adults were children once, even though few of them remember that. Thank you.
Yes, now on behalf of the European Conservatives and Reformists Group, Mr. Slavakov, please.
Благодаря, госпожо председател. Аз знам какво ще донесе тази инициатива и какво ще се случва в тези столици. Това вече е правилно в България. Казва се Асамблея Знаме на мира. Там събираха от цял свят. Прави се с цел промиване на мозъци. Значи, тези тоталитарни приеми на мен са ми известни, защото аз не съм много малък. Това, което ме притеснява е, че децата трябва да взимат решения. Вече е правено от червените кхмери в Камбоджа. Резултатът е 2 милиона убити. Като много от тези решения са на деца. Това не е, защото децата са лоши. Това е, защото те са много емоционални и все още нямат изградена ценностна система. А тя се гради в семейството. И освен това, какво означава децата да се образоват като европейски граждани? Те са първо граждани на собствените си държави, после са европейски граждани, жители на земята и обитатели на слънчевата система. В крайна сметка, столицата на децата ще бъде поредното безсмислено прахосване на пари и то най-вече за сметка на държавите. Благодаря.
Of the world, of planet. It seems to me that this initiative is a waste of money.
Left group, Mrs. Pereira, please.
Obrigada, Presidente. À designação anual das capitais europeias da criança deveriam corresponder medidas concretas que fizessem cumprir o objetivo de erradicar a pobreza e a exclusão social infantil, criando condições de igualdade de oportunidades para que todas as crianças possam ter um desenvolvimento integral, equilibrado e saudável. De outra forma, como tantas outras iniciativas, propagam-se objetivos sem que corresponda a ação necessária para os concretizar. Às crianças deve ser garantido o direito a brincar no local onde vivem e sem medo de desfrutar da natureza
espaços verdes, equipamentos que fomentem a prática desportiva, a criação e fruição cultural, sem discriminações e violência. As cidades, vilas e aldeias, os territórios devem promover equipamentos adequados que garantam estes direitos e uma oferta alargada de transportes públicos de qualidade que possibilite a mobilidade para usufruir. Esta iniciativa não ilude o problema real. Uma em cada 4 crianças na União Europeia são afetadas pela pobreza e exclusão social. Este é também o resultado das políticas da UE de empobrecimento, ao mesmo tempo que caucionam os lucros crescentes dos grandes grupos económicos. Exigem-se respostas que assentem em 3 eixos fundamentais: a garantia da salvaguarda dos direitos próprios das crianças, direitos sociais e laborais para os pais ou cuidadores e serviços públicos universais, gratuitos e de qualidade. Num relatório recente do qual fui relatora, elencaram-se propostas que falta concretizar. O aumento da oferta pública e universal de serviços de creches e educação pré-escolar, o reforço do investimento em serviços de saúde ou educação universais, públicos e de qualidade, a garantia de condições decentes da habitação, o acesso a uma nutrição equilibrada ou transportes acessíveis, a conexão entre a concretização dos direitos das crianças e a efetivação dos direitos dos seus pais, nomeadamente através da defesa do trabalho com direitos e com salários justos, bem como do acesso aos direitos parentais, incluindo o direito à amamentação. A defesa e a afirmação do direito a brincar. Para além destas, impõem-se ainda medidas que consagrem um caminho de garantias e reforço dos direitos dos pais, nomeadamente a redução do horário de trabalho para as 35 horas semanais, reforçar a proteção social das crianças, nomeadamente através da universalização e reforço do abono de família, a limitação do trabalho por turnos noturno ao fim de semana e a elaboração contínua, o combate à precariedade e a creche gratuita para todas as crianças até aos 3 anos e a criação de uma rede pública de creches, que é o que temos defendido em Portugal. Obrigada.
It ends the debate, and now I would like to give the floor back to Commission Vice President Šuica, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, dear honourable members. I have listened attentively to your remarks, and thank you for your visions and for your proposal. I can agree that we have to give children a voice. As a preliminary draft assessment, the Commission believes that such initiative would require analysis, preparation, building on existing initiatives, and already available funding schemes in close consultation with all relevant stakeholders. But coordination is necessary. These stakeholders would include, I will repeat, international organizations such as UNICEF and key child rights organizations. The provisions and safeguards of the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child will need to underpin this proposal with the best interests of the child at the centre. It is also important to consult local and regional stakeholders, and especially children themselves, on their priorities, on their needs, which could be broader than this specific initiative. Joining forces is key to make a change in children's lives, together with the European Parliament, with Member States, local authorities, international and civil society organizations, practitioners, the whole society and children themselves. In this vein, I also want to thank this House for your engagement and partnership in making the European Union strategy on the rights of the child and the European Child Guarantee a reality for every child. At this stage, we take good note of welcoming and underlying principles and the importance of embedding children's rights in local realities. We also note that this initiative seems to be at the preliminary reflection stage. To conclude, we therefore invite you to analyse this proposal in more details, taking into account existing initiatives and mechanisms. We will evaluate your proposal, and I have to tell you, on personal note, when I was a mayor back in 2000, at that time I established Children's City Council, so children could elect or select their own mayor. So because we know that democracy starts at a very early stage. You might have noticed that we adopted in the European Commission Defence of Democracy package, which was announced by President von der Leyen in this House. Today, that we have to defend democracy, it's obvious, unfortunately. So where do we start? We have to defend democracy from within. It's not only about disinformation and something which comes from different third countries. It's also within, we have to make our children be literate to differentiate between what is fake and what is lie, what is true, what is disinformation, what is genuine information. So we have to start from a very early stage, and this is what we are proposing. So this is very important, and we established children participation platform, which is now operational, so children can express their views there. So I think that this is very important. If I see Madam Bishop here, remembering Future of Europe. You know that we incorporated 1/3 of youngsters into this exercise, and youngsters for us were 16, who are still children, from 16 to 25 years old. So we know when we talk about Future of Europe, we talk about their future. So how can you talk about them without them? And we want to have them in. So I think this initiative is good, excellent. It's always about resources. So let's see how we can join forces and how we can find resources. So at this stage we take good note, but it doesn't mean that we cannot develop this initiative in the next mandate. Thank you very much for this initiative, and let's stay in touch.
And we thank you, Madam Commissioner. I have received one motion for resolution to wind up this debate. The debate is closed, and the vote will be held tomorrow. Now the sitting is suspended for a few minutes, and it will resume at 10:30 with the debate with Prime Minister of Finland. Thank you very much.